Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we have got something special in store for you if you are gearing up for the CompTIA Cloud Plus Certification exam. In this video we will be covering a 30 practice question to get you prepped and primed for the success on the Cloud Plus Certification exam. So if you are ready to ace the CompTIA Cloud Plus Certification exam and elevate your career to new heights, make sure to hit that like button, share the video and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss any upcoming content. So let's gear up and dive into the success. Question number 1. A software engineer needs to transfer data over the internet using programmatic access while also being able to query the data. Which of the following will best help the engineer to complete this task? Option A, SQL, option B, WebSockets, option C, RPC, and option D, Graph Query Language. And the correct option is option D, GraphQL. So GraphQL is an API query language that allows clients to request only the data they need, making it an ideal solution for transferring and query data programmatically over the internet. It enables the software engineer to structure queries for specific data, improving efficiency and flexibility compared to traditional REST APIs. Question number 2. A customer relationship management application which is hosted in a public cloud infrastructure as a service network is vulnerable to a remote command execution vulnerability. Which of the following is the best solution for the security engineer to implement to prevent the application from being exploited by the basic attacks? And the options are option A, IPS, Intrusion Prevention System, option B, ACL, that is Access Control List, option C, DLP, Data Loss Prevention, and option D, WAF, Web Application Firewall. And the correct option is option D, WAF, Web Application Firewall, and the explanation is that a web application firewall is specifically designed to protect web application by filtering and monitoring HTTP traffic between a web application and the internet. It can help block common web attacks such as remote command execution, SQL injection, and cross-site scripting by analyzing and filtering malicious requests before they reach the application. So the WAF or the web application firewall is typically deployed in front of your destination server, and that is basically the server that is hosting your web application. So all type of traffic goes through this WAF, and any malicious traffic that is destined for the server is blocked by the WAF. Question number 3. Which of the following is a field of computer science that enables computers to identify and understand objects and people in images and videos? And the options are option A, image reconstruction, option B, facial recognition, option C, natural language processing, and option D, computer vision. And the correct option is option D, computer vision. So computer vision is a field of computer science that focuses on enabling computers to interpret and understand the content of images and videos, including identifying objects, people, and scenes. It involves tasks like image recognition, object detection, and facial recognition, making it central to applications such as autonomous vehicle and surveillance systems. Question number 4. A company needs to deploy its own code directly in the cloud without provisioning additional infrastructure. Which of the following is the best cloud service model for the company to use? And the options are option A, PaaS or platform as a service, option B, software as a service, option C, infrastructure as a service, and option D, anything as a service. And the correct option is option A, PaaS or platform as a service. So platform as a service is the best cloud service model for deploying custom code without the need to manage underlying infrastructure. By underlying infrastructure, we means the operating systems, the servers, the VMs, and the networking, etc. It provides a platform that includes operating systems, development tools, and runtime environments, allowing developers to focus on developing and building and deploying applications. Examples of these PaaS include AWS Elastic Beanstalk, Google App Engine, and Microsoft Azure App Service. Question number 5. A company just learned that the data in its object storage was accessed by an unauthorized party. Which of the following should the company have done to make the data unusable? And the options are option A, the company should have switched from object storage to file storage. Option B, the company should have hashed the data. Option C, the company should have changed the file access permissions. And option D, the company should have encrypted the data at rest. And the correct option is the company should have encrypted the data at rest, because we are talking about making the data unusable. Hashing does not make the data unusable. It is basically used for integrity of the data, not the confidentiality. This solution, changing the object storage to file storage, is also not secure if the file storage is also not encrypted. And the file, even if you change the file permission and the data is even then accessed, it can still be readable. And the solution is still that even in any case, if the data is accessed, if it is encrypted, it would be of no use to the intruder. So the explanation is that encrypting data at rest ensures that even if unauthorized parties gain access to the storage, the data remains unreadable without the appropriate decryption keys. Encryption is a critical security measure for protecting sensitive information stored in the object storage system or any other storage medium. Question number 6. Which of the following is a difference between a SAN and a NAS? So SAN is storage area network and NAS is network attached storage. They are related but different concepts of provisioning the storage to the clients or to the servers. And the options are option A, SAN works only with fiber based network. Option B, SAN works with any Ethernet based networks. Option C, NAS uses a faster protocol than a SAN. And option D, NAS uses a slower protocol than a SAN. And the correct option is option D, NAS uses a slower protocol than a SAN. So this is the diagram of, you can say, of both the NAS and the SAN. So this is the NAS. It is typically given through a network switch and through your Ethernet networking, such as, let's suppose, these may be Cat6 cables, while the SAN uses dedicated fiber channel switch and fiber channel cables, and these cables of maybe 16G or 32G. Similarly, these cables are also of the fiber channel. So this is a very fast and dedicated network, and it is of course faster than the NAS. So the key difference between a SAN, that is storage area network, and a NAS, network attached storage, is the protocols they use and their performance. SANs typically use block level storage protocols like fiber channel or iSCSI, which are faster and more efficient for high performance applications, while NAS, on the other hand, uses file level protocols like NFS, that is Network File System, or SMB, Server Message Block, which are slower compared to SAN protocols. Question number 7. A cloud engineer is troubleshooting an application that consumes multiple third-party REST APIs. The application is randomly experiencing high latency. Which of the following would best help determine the source of the latency? And the options are option A, configuring centralized logging to analyze HTTP requests. Option B, running a flow log on the network to analyze the packets. Option C, configuring an API gateway to track all incoming requests. And option D, enabling tracing to detect HTTP response times and codes. And the correct option is option D, enabling tracing to detect HTTP response times and codes. So enabling tracing allows the engineer to measure the performance of HTTP requests, including response times and status codes for each REST API call. Tracing provides detailed insights into the latency issues, helping identify whether the delays are caused by the third-party APIs, network issues, or the application itself. Question number 8. A cloud engineer is reviewing the following Docker file to deploy a Python web application. So, this is the Docker file to deploy the web application. And question is, which of the following changes should the engineer make to the file to improve container security? Option A, add the instruction user non-root. Option B, change the version from latest to 3.11. Option C, remove the entry point instruction. And option D, ensure my app/man/py is owned by the root. And the correct option is option A, add the instruction user non-root. And the explanation is that adding user non-root ensures that the application inside the container does not run as the root user. Running container as the root is a security risk because it can allow attackers to gain escalated privileges if the container is compromised. Question number 9. A group of cloud administrators frequently uses the same deployment template to create a cloud-based development environment. The administrators are unable to go back and review the history of changes they have made to the template. Which of the following cloud resource deployment concepts should the administrator start using? Option A, drift detection. Option B, repeatability. Option C, documentation. And option D, versioning. And the correct option is option D, versioning. So the explanation is that versioning is the process of tracking and managing changes to a file or template over time. By using version control systems, for example Git, cloud administrators can maintain a history of changes to deployment templates, review modifications, revert to previous versions, and collaborate effectively. This is essential for tracking changes and ensuring consistent deployment configurations. Question number 10. A government agency in the public sector is considering a migration from an on-premises to the cloud. Which of the following are the most important consideration for this cloud migration? So the key points here are that the organization is a government agency and they are considering to migrate from on-premises to the cloud. So what are the two key considerations? Option A, compliance. Option B, infrastructure as a service versus software as a service. Option C, firewall capabilities. Option D, regulatory. Option E, implementation timeline. And option F, service availability. And the correct options are option A, compliance, and option D, regulatory. And the explanation is that when a government agency in the public sector considers cloud migration, compliance and regulatory requirements are paramount. It is because Government agencies must adhere to strict compliance standards such as GDPR, HIPAA, or FedRAMP, depending on their jurisdiction and data types. Ensuring the cloud provider meets these standards is crucial. And regulatory agencies must comply with laws and regulations specific to their sector or region, which may dictate data sovereignty retention policies or specific security controls. Question number 11. A company wants to optimize cloud resources and lower the overhead caused by managing multiple operating systems. Which of the following compute resources would be best to help to achieve this goal? And the options are option A, VM, option B, containers, option C, remote desktops, and option D, bare metal servers. And the correct option is option B, containers. So containers are lightweight, portable, and efficient compute resources that help optimize cloud resource usage. They allow applications to run in isolated environments without the overhead of managing multiple operating systems. Containers share the same operating system kernel, reduce the need for managing separate OS instances, making them an ideal choice for resource optimization. So we were talking about managing multiple operating systems, which is the case in the case of virtualization, because in typical virtualization, we have multiple operating system installed upon the hypervisor, while in the container, we may have one operating systems, and this operating system along with the container engine can then have multiple containers without the need to manage multiple operating systems. So this is how the containerization is different from virtualization, where we have multiple operating systems inside each VM. Question number 12. A company runs a discussion forum that caters to global users. The company's monitoring system reports that the homepage suddenly is seeing elevated response times, even though internal monitoring has reported no issues or changes. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this issue? We are talking about elevated response times or poor performance of the forum or application, and the options are option A, cryptojacking, option B, human error, option C, DDoS, and option D, phishing. And the correct option is option C, DDoS, or distributed denial of service attack. The elevated message response times on global discussion forums homepage with no internal changes or issues are indicative of DDoS attack. DDoS attack floods the target system with a high volume of traffic, overwhelming its capacity to handle legitimate requests, leading to slow response times or service unavailability. Question number 13. Which of the following migration types is best to use when migrating a highly available application, which is normally hosted on a local VM cluster for usage with an external user population? And the options are option A, cloud to on-premises, option B, cloud to cloud, option C, on-premises to cloud, and option D, on-premises to on-premises. So of course we have very high availability inside the cloud as long as you are able to connect to the cloud. Therefore the correct option is option C, on-premises to the cloud. So when migrating a highly available application hosted on a local VM cluster to support an external user population, moving the application from on-premises to the cloud is the most appropriate choice. The cloud offers scalability, global availability, and the ability to handle external user demands more effectively than on-premises setup. Question number 14. A cloud architect attempts to modify a protected branch but is unable to do so. The architect receives an error indicating the action cannot be completed. Which of the following should the architect try instead? And options are option A, adding a new remote, option B, creating a pull request, option C, merging the branch, and option D, rebasing the branch. And the correct option is option B, creating a pull request. So protected branches are typically configured to prevent direct modification to ensure stability and enforce collaboration workflows. To make changes, the architect should create a pull request. This allows the proposed changes to be reviewed, discussed, and approved before merging them into protected branch. Question number 15. Which of the following container storage types loses data after a restart? And the options are option A, object, option B, persistent volume, option C, ephemeral, option D, block. Option C, ephemeral. So ephemeral storage is temporary storage that is tied to the life cycle of a container. Data stored in ephemeral storage is lost when the container restarts, stops, or is terminated. This type of storage is suitable for use cases where data persistence is not required. Question number 16. An organization suffered a critical failure of its primary data center and made the decision to switch to the DR site. After 1 week of using the DR site, the primary data center is now ready to resume operations. Which of the following is the most efficient way to bring the block storage in the primary data center up to date with the DR site? Option A, set up replication. Option B, copy the data across both sites. Option C, restore incremental backups. And option D, restore full backups. And the correct option is option A, set up replication. So replication is the most efficient way to synchronize the block storage between the DR side and the primary data center. Replication ensures that only the changes made during the DR side's operation are transferred back to the primary data center, minimizing the time and bandwidth required for synchronization. Question number 17. A cloud administrator is building a new VM for machine learning training. The developer requesting the VM has stated that the machine will need a full GPU dedicated to it. Which of the following configuration options would best meet this requirement? Option A, virtual GPU. Option B, external GPU. Option C, pass-through GPU. And option D, shared GPU. And the correct option is option C, pass-through GPU. So pass-through GPU allows a full physical GPU to be dedicated to a single virtual machine. This configuration ensures optimal performance for tasks like machine learning training, which requires substantial GPU resources. With pass-through, the VM has direct access to the GPU hardware, avoiding the overhead of virtualization. Question number 18. Which of the following service models would be used for a database in the cloud? Option A, PaaS, that is platform as a service. Option B, infrastructure as a service. Option C, COS, so I don't know the abbreviation of this C. And option D, SaaS, that is software as a service. And the correct option is option A, PaaS, that is platform as a service. So a database in the cloud typically falls under the PaaS, that is platform as a service model. In PaaS, the cloud provider manages the underlying infrastructure and platform, offering services like databases, middleware, and development tools. Users can focus on deploying and managing their applications or data without worrying about hardware, OS, or database software maintenance. Question number 19. A VDI administrator has received reports from the drafting department that rendering is slower than normal. Which of the following should the administrator check first to optimize the performance of the VDI infrastructure? Option A, GPU, option B, CPU, option C, storage, and option D, memory. And the correct option is option A, GPU. So rendering tasks, especially those performed by a drafting department, for example, CAD applications or 3D modeling, are heavily reliant on GPU performance. In a virtual desktop infrastructure that is VDI, ensuring the GPU resources are adequately provisioned and optimized is critical for rendering intensive workloads. The administrator should check GPU utilization and ensure the virtual desktop have access to sufficient GPU resources. Question number 20. A Chief Information Security Officer, that is CISO, is evaluating the company's security management program. The CISO needs to locate all the assets with identified deviations and mitigation resources. Which of the following would help the CISO with these requirements? And the options are option A, an SLA document, option B, a DR plan, option C, SOC procedures, and option D, a risk register. And the correct option is already highlighted, that is option D, a risk register. So a risk register is a centralized document that identifies, assesses, and tracks risk associated with an organization's assets and operations. It typically includes information on deviations, that is risks, their potential impact, and mitigation measures and the current status of those measures. This makes it the ideal tool for the CISO to locate assets with identified deviations and their associated mitigation efforts. Question number 21. A cloud engineer is responsible for managing a public cloud environment. There is currently one virtual network that is used to host the servers in the cloud environment. The environment is rapidly growing and the network does not have any more available IP addresses. Which of the following should the engineer do to accommodate additional servers in the environment? Option A, create a VPC and peer the networks. Option B, implement dynamic routing. Option C, enable DHCP on the networks. And option D, obtain a new IPAM subscription. And the correct option is option A, create a VPC and peer the networks. So the explanation is that when a virtual network runs out of available IP addresses, creating a virtual private cloud, that is VPC, and pairing the networks is an effective solution. This allows the engineer to extend the network's address space by adding a new VPC and pairing it with the existing network enables seamless communication between them. The VPC can be assigned its own IP address range, thus addressing the shortage of IPs. Question number 22. A system administrator is migrating a bare metal server to the cloud. Which of the following types of migration should the system administrators perform to accomplish this task? And the options are option A, V2V, that is virtualization to virtualization. Option B, V2P. Option C, P2P. And option D, P2V. And the correct option is option D, P2V, that is physical to virtual. So the task described involves migrating a bare metal server, that is a physical server, to the cloud, which typically involves converting the physical machine into a virtualized instance. This is known as P2V or physical to virtual migration, where the physical hardware is replicated or transferred as a virtual machine to the cloud environment. Question number 23. A cloud administrator is reviewing the authentication and authorization mechanism implemented within the cloud environment. Upon review, the administrator discovers the sales group is part of the finance group and the sales team members can access the financial application. Single sign-on is also implemented, which makes access much easier. Which of the following access control rules should be changed? Option A, discretionary based. Option B, attribute based. Option C, mandatory based. And option D, role based. And the correct option is option D, role based. So the scenario involves an issue where members of the sales group, being part of the finance group, can access the financial application. This points to an issue with the role-based access control, which is a policy where users are assigned roles and access permissions are based on those roles. In this case, the sales team should not have access to the financial application unless specifically required. The administrator should adjust the roles to restrict this access and ensure that roles are correctly assigned to limit access to sensitive applications. Question number 24. A company developed a product using a cloud provider's platform as a service platform and many of the platform-based components within the application environment. Which of the following would the company most likely be concerned about when utilizing a multi-cloud strategy or migrating to another cloud provider? Option A, licensing. Option B, authentication providers. Option C, service level agreement. And option D, vendor lock-in. And the correct option is option D, vendor lock-in. So when a company develops a product using a cloud provider's PaaS, that is platform as a service platform, and many platform-based components, the company is highly reliant on that provider's tools, services, and technologies. Vendor lock-in occurs when the company's product becomes closely tied to a specific cloud provider's services, making it difficult to migrate to another provider or use multiple cloud providers. The proprietary technologies and services offered by the cloud provider could result in challenges when trying to switch to another provider or adopt a multi-cloud strategy. Question number 25. A system administrator is trying to establish an RDP session from a desktop to a server in the cloud. However, the connection appears to be refused even through the VM is responding to ICMP echo request. It may be even though the VM is responding to the ICMP echo request. Which of the following should the administrator first check? Option A, the firewall. Option B, the gateway. Option B, the subnet. Option C, the gateway. And option D, the services. And the correct option is option A, the firewall. So when an administrator can ping a virtual machine but cannot establish an RDP, that is remote desktop protocol session, it suggests that the server is unreachable at the network layer. ICMP is working, that the server is reachable at the network layer, that is ICMP is working, but there is an issue at the application or transport layer because the RDP protocol is not connecting. The most likely cause for this is a firewall blocking the RDP traffic on the RDP port 3389. The administrator should first check both the cloud firewall, such as security groups or network ACLs, and the local firewall on the server to ensure that inbound RDP traffic is allowed. Question number 26. Which of the following would be the best option for discussion of what individuals should do in an incident response or disaster recovery scenario? And the options are option A, a business continuity plan. Option B, incident response, disaster recovery documentation. Option C, a tabletop exercise. And option D, a root cause analysis. And the correct option is option C, a tabletop exercise. So, a tabletop exercise is a simulated discussion-based activity where individuals or teams meet to discuss and role-play their response to a hypothetical disaster or incident scenarios. It is designed to test and improve the effectiveness of incident response and disaster recovery plans by allowing participants to explore their roles, identify gaps, and refine processes in a low pressure setting. This type of exercise is the best option for discussing that what individual should do during an incident response or disaster recovery scenario.